Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for November 25th through December 1st. This week, there are themes around contemplation, reflection, and mentally, emotionally parsing through how it is that you're proceeding in your life. We also have some new initiation, new beginning energy. We have all of this is being channeled via Mercury retrograde, a new moon in Sagittarius, and some other things that we'll talk about this week. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm so honored to be able to share the astrology of this week with you from a depth psychological perspective. So this week, let's talk about Mercury retrograde because that's happening at the very beginning of the week. And I want to say too, this particular week, what really strikes me is there's many different aspects. There's different astrological configurations that are fitting in together that are impacting one another. So there's really a confluence here that's happening, especially around themes of introspection, contemplation, and reflection. So, and this is the essence of Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde happens about 3 to 4 times every single year. Mercury is a symbol of our thought process, our speech, our written word, our communication, commerce, trickstery kind of ways of being. And Mercury is really at its core essence about bridging. It's about being in one world as well as another. And it's about the transfer of something or someone from one thing to another. And so Mercury, I think among the other planets in our system, Mercury really holds a lot of paradox, and it holds this idea of moving from one thing to another. So there's this very transition sort of energy to it. And I share this with you because this is the essence of Mercury is chewing on things, thinking about things. It's about moving from one place to another. And typically, Mercury appears to move forward in the sky for us, but then a couple of times a year, it appears to move backwards just over a brief chunk of the zodiac. In this case, this is happening Monday, the 25th of November through December 15th. And it's happening in the zodiac from 22 degrees of Sagittarius to 6 degrees of Sagittarius. And so this period from November 25th to December 15th is about internalizing your mental, vocal energy. It's about contemplation and reflection and looking at how you want to revise or review or change some things that you've been working on. And so this can be more behind the scenes, it can be more internal, it can be sort of, and so also I want to say too that the planetary energy, we can think of it as water that we're swimming in, or a current that we're swimming in, or weather that we're experiencing. And so depending on our temperament and our local setting, we're going to experience the weather in different ways. And so it's happening. It is being embodied in the environment. It is embodied via us, via you as an individual, via the people in your life. And so it's going to take on different forms depending on where you're at and what's happening in your life. And so Mercury retrograde may be, I guess actually, so let me back up for a second. The reason I wanted to say that is that we can intentionally co-participate with this energy by saying, okay, Mercury retrograde is this time of reflection, contemplation, of like retooling things. And we can intentionally choose activities that embody and mirror that energy. And I think that is a really lovely way to work with the astrology, to use it as an accompaniment of sort of like looking at the clock and saying, oh, it's almost noon. I think I'm hungry. I think I'll eat. And we can use the clock as sort of this framework for organizing our day. We can do this mentally, emotionally, physically with the astrology to sort of provide a frame to uh, to plan and to structure our lives. And also, you don't have to do that. And Mercury retrograde is still occurring, and so you may still have these experiences, and there may be a way that Mercury retrograde uh, is being channeled through you, where it's something that you don't even realize that it is. And so I think like this is important with astrology, where um, I think in our westernized culture, we want to um, harness or control or tap into the astrology. And I think that is certainly can be very helpful and empowering. And also, there's an element of astrology where sometimes we don't always exactly know how things are going to manifest or embody in our lives. And so I think um, there's also a place for being open and curious about where you're being led, and of course, always following what feels right for you and choosing. Um, but sort of like this openness of like, oh, like I wonder what Mercury retrograde may be like for you at this particular time. And then to notice like where Mercury retrograde kind of things are happening. And then we can kind of see how that current is flowing. So, anyways, I digress. I'm going to step off my little soapbox there. Uh, so, so Mercury retrograde is about these themes of contemplation, reimagination, and we can think of the retrograde as an internalizing of the energy, of an introversion of the energy. And so this means that there might be more that's going on behind the scenes versus more external. Now, this is happening in Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius is the sign that is about big thinking, philosophical thinking. It's really thinking about like the broad themes and the more philosophical meaning of things. It's more about the big picture versus the nitty-gritty details. And Sagittarius is also about wisdom that we gain through lived experience, through going out into the world, either literally or through, studying different experiences that others have had. And it's about gaining wisdom through study, through research, through experiencing different things, anything that is different than your norm. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, so it has this expansive, light, buoyant sort of energy to it. And I will say that in the traditional astrology system of rulership, Mercury tends to have a more challenging time in Sagittarius because Mercury as a planet is about hopping around to one thing at a time. It's more about having this specific focus and moving very quickly, whereas Sagittarius is more about the broad view. So I think that there is this potential for kind of like a bit of an inner conflict around Mercury and Sagittarius. Um, and I think this connects in with this particular Mercury retrograde aspecting both Jupiter and Saturn. There's some added tension there. But I will say, I think we can think of this as I made a video on Instagram about this recently where it's not like helpful, I don't think, anyways, to say, oh, is this good or is this bad? Is this Mercury in detriment? Oh, that's bad. It's going to be hard. I mean, maybe. I think that we can be prepared for astrology that is inherently more challenging than other astrology. And also, we can use it in this descriptive way where it is Mercury, the mind, thought process, communication, transaction, like business stuff. And we can say, okay, this is a thought process, a way of being that is more about looking at the big picture and contemplating and having conversations that are about the broader strokes of things and about seeking information um, via looking at more than just what is here in your limited scope in your individual world. And I think that may provide more assistance to you to understand your experience. And so that's Mercury in Sagittarius. The other piece I'll say about this is that you can get a more personal view of this via looking at which house Sagittarius rules in your birth chart. And so, whatever house that is, the themes, the area of life that that house symbolizes means that this is particularly where this contemplation, reflection, reimagination theme may be focused. Now, I will say also, I think that's helpful to look at that because that gives you a little more insight. And also, that's a bit reductive because we also want to look at the aspects that this Mercury retrograde is making to your personal planets. We would want to look at what's going on actually in your lived experience. And we would want to have like a fleshed out contemplation around this. And so you can do that, of course. And this is especially relevant because our new moon this week is also happening in Sagittarius. So there's multiple layers of Sagittarius, and this adds more emphasis to this area of life, whatever this house is. And you can find your birth chart online. So the house is, you need to know your birth time. If you don't know what time you were born, you can also use your moon sign as your ascendant and count the houses from there. Anyways, that's a whole other talk. So another component of this Mercury retrograde is that Mercury in this particular sign of Sagittarius is making an opposition to Jupiter and a square to Saturn. So it is continuing to sit in this T square that we've talked about that's been happening over the last, I would say, month or two. And with this combo, it's inherently, there's a bit of like tension here because when we have a square and an opposition, there are themes around figuring out how to hold multiple and sometimes seemingly conflicting energy or ways of being. And I really feel that with this aspect in particular because we're talking about Jupiter, which is expansion and like really like going big and being inclusive and like thinking about everything. And then we have Saturn, which is limitation, containment, long-term results, like really being devoted to a path with like minor, small, but consistent action over time. And so like Jupiter is the like, oh yeah, like I want to do this. This would be great. This would be amazing. And Saturn is like, okay, now we're going to do that. And that is going to require dedication. It is going to require commitment. It may require sacrifice. It may require limitation. And when we have Mercury in the mix here, this can also look like serious thoughts about how you are moving forward, serious thoughts about where you're at in your life. And this like simultaneous, like seeing the big picture and seeing the possibility, and then how is that going to become manifest for you, Saturn. And so I think that there's actually a lot of possibility here, and a lot of potential to connect into this like meaningful path forward for you, whatever that looks like. And you know, there's like a bit of there's a bit of like tension around it. And so what I will say with this too, so looking at this from a depth psychological perspective is ideally we want to create space for all parts to exist. And then we want to look for where there is a sense of opening or integration or openness. And if it feels like it's not quite there yet, we don't want to force it. We want to hold the tension of the opposites is one term. So we want to like hold space for conflicted feelings, like feeling like I want this, but I also want this, and I cannot have both things at the same time. I want to really validate that that is such a normal human experience and that you get to feel that way as long as you feel that way until at some point you will not, at some point something will shift when we're holding space for all of these conflicting things. There is something that emerges. And I think that Mercury, we can see Mercury in Sagittarius as a symbol of the thing that is emerging, especially with this new moon. There is something new that is coming into being. And so how can you hold space as best you can for this tension or this contemplation and allow for new energy or new life to emerge through you via your internal experience or via your external life? Now, as if that wasn't enough, we also have a more subtle aspect that I think is really helpful with this, which is Mercury making a trine to Chiron in Aries. And with trines, there's this effortless coming together. And in this case, Chiron is a symbol of mentorship, guidance, support, healing. And I think, like, when I was feeling into this, I was like thinking about how Mercury Chiron in this configuration, it feels like working with your belief systems. We may call this your like schemas, like your thought templates, like your um, your processing system and belief system around the way that things are and the way that life is, especially for you. Like, that people are this way, or this is the way that your life is, and you're this kind of person. I think that there can be this potential for healing the mode of operation that you run from, that you operate from, that is running in your psyche. And I think that there can also be a potential for receiving some healing via via mercurial ways. So that could be like reading something or learning something or a conversation with someone where maybe someone says something and it really hits you in a way that has a big impact on you. And it might not even be that you're even seeking out information, that it just comes to you. This is the nature of the trine. And I think Mercury Chiron is a reminder that our communication, your voice, your words, they have this healing, helping impact. And so I would really be watching for where that comes in for you, because there is some support that's happening there, that's occurring in a more subtle way. And I think overall, when we're talking about this Mercury-Jupiter-Saturn configuration, it's about holding space for inspiration versus overwhelm, and how we can tend to ourselves, like by resourcing this Chiron resource to give ourselves what we need when we're going into that sense of overwhelm. Okay, so another part of what's happening this week is a new moon in Sagittarius. And this is happening on Saturday, November 30th. It's exact at 10:21 p.m. Pacific time. And it's happening at 9 degrees of Sagittarius. So we have the new moon at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, which is like the first third of the sign. And then we have Mercury stationing, like really sitting, like we can think of Mercury retrograde. It's like Mercury is like really concentrated. It's really sitting down in this area. So new moon at 9 degrees, Mercury retrograde at 20, it'll be at 20 degrees Sag during the new moon. So they're within the same sign. They're not super close, but Mercury is really active right now. It's very operative. And so there's this melding, this integration, this coming together of the mind and the psychosomatic mind, the psychosomatic function, which is the moon. The moon is so connected to our body, to our emotions, our intuition, and this like interconnection between the mind and the body. In Indian astrology, they actually view the moon as a symbol of the mind. And so I think like that's, culturally they look at the psyche in a different way than we do. And so I'm saying this because there is like via the new moon is at the moment of conception, the moment of initiation, the moment that something happens, that there is something new that is occurring, and it's not readily apparent. It's like there is something that's just like being dropped into the ocean, and it's going to continue to unfurl and expand, and we can kind of get a guess at what it may be. We can guess at what this seedling may be, but we don't quite know until we get some time and space into the game. And so this is a new beginning around Sagittarius themes, which are big picture, belief systems, your philosophy, your path forward. It's connecting into this Mercury-Jupiter-Saturn T-square. So it's like sort of, I think this is actually really cool because there's something new that is coming into being. There's something new that is coming into your life. And of course, you can look at this via how Sagittarius relates to your personal birth chart. I think that also with the new moon, we can also look at what is simultaneously falling away and what is coming into being. Because the new moon is also this point where we are in the dark sky. Like we literally cannot see the moon because there's no, from our perspective, there's no light that's shining on it. So we're like really in this place of not knowing, of releasing, and there's something new that comes in via the releasing. And so that may be something to contemplate, like what it is. I think this also kind of connects into the Saturn part of this, is that Saturn reminds us of the phenomenon of finiteness, of limitation, that we only have so much energy and time and attention to devote. And so it may be for you. And actually, this feels very connected to mutable energy as well, because this is a lot of mutable stuff. The mutable signs are Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo. And so we have Mercury in Sagittarius, we have Jupiter in Gemini, we have Saturn in Pisces. And so with mutable energy, there can be a tendency to take on a lot, because mutable energy loves variety and novelty and like this and that and kind of like mixing things together. And there's this love of synthesis, there's this love of multiplicity. And so I think also, especially if you're feeling a sense of overwhelm at this time, it may help to contemplate, okay, what is it that you're letting go of, or what is it that is winding down in your life and creating space for something new. Now, this new moon is also making a trine to Mars in Leo, and I really like this because this feels very energizing. This feels like we're able to connect in with the Mars principle, the Mars archetype, which is about being direct, standing up for something, fighting for something, advocating for yourself, someone else, or others, or a principle. Mars tends to be a symbol of action, initiation, and confronting things. Mars can also be a symbol of anger, agitation, frustration. I think, though, I think that although those things are not pleasant for us typically, I think that we can look at from, again, like this depth psychological perspective, Mars, when it manifests, when it embodies via anger, agitation, frustration, um, or even violence, there is something that has gone awry. There is something that has gotten distorted. There is something that the psyche is like, oh, I need to protect, I need to defend, I need to attack, because there is a sense of threat or unsafety, and that it has gone so far that the psyche feels like it needs to take extreme measures to defend itself. And so I think that with this new moon, because it's a trine, it's probably going to tend more to Mars embodying via passion and enthusiasm and inspiration. And also, I think a good opportunity to notice where, if you are feeling agitation or angstiness, that is communication from your psyche, that your psyche is telling you there's something, in a reductive way, there's something that you don't like, and that your psyche is trying to protect you in some way. And so there's this theme with the new moon around something emerging, and I think that Mars comes in to support you in that brings in this enthusiasm. Um, Also in December, like along these themes, like looking at, and Mars is important, especially now too, because we will be moving into a period of Mars retrograde next week. I'm going to talk a lot more about that in a separate video. But that is happening, and we're going to have kind of like this immersion into Mars energy so that we can get more familiar with it via Mars retrograde. And I'm really excited to be hosting a workshop about working with challenging astrology from a depth psychological perspective. So this was originally going to be an in-person event, and now it's going to be hybrid. So you can come and see me in San Diego, and you can also attend online. It is on Friday, December 13th at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And I'm so excited to be able to talk about some of this challenging astrology that we are having, and then also challenging astrology just in the birth chart and the natal chart as well, and how to look at this as not like good or bad or scary, but descriptive of an experience and descriptive of what is happening from a depth psychological, like working with the unconscious themes, and then also working from a trauma informed social justice perspective as well. And so if this is something of interest to you, I would absolutely love to have you there, to have you in person, or to have you online. I'll have a link below to that so that you can sign up for that. So I'm excited to offer that. And there will be no moon circles this month because of the way that the holidays land. But I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. So I digress. So that is some of what I'm feeling with this particular new moon. And then another part of what's happening this week is that Venus in Capricorn will square Chiron. So we have like a little bit of Chiron action going on here. And in this case, I think this is more about healing that can happen via a relational encounter. And so this is like Venus coming to Chiron. Venus is moving faster than Chiron. So Venus is encountering Chiron via a square. And so I think that we can think of this as something in relationship, or maybe beauty, aesthetics, femininity. There's something here that invokes a potential for healing, or for looking for assistance or guidance. There's something that gets activated here. There's something that can be helpful to you in your life path via relationships, beauty, aesthetics, harmony, via, like, I really think Venus can also be our experience of feminine energy or women's issues, or femme issues. There's something that can happen here. And so I think this is like another energy that's happening around this time. And then, yes, next week we will talk more about Mars retrograde. Mars is stationing retrograde December 6th, and it will be retrograde through February 23rd. So, like a good chunk of time. And it'll be retrograde from 6 degrees of Leo and to 17 degrees of Cancer. And so, this is like really anchoring into our sense of passion, enthusiasm, uh, advocation, and standing up for something. And like Mars is also so much about being direct. So we're going to go more into that. But that energy is like it's already been building here because Mars has been slowing down to prepare for its retrograde. And so we'll talk about that more in the coming weeks. And I really want to emphasize that, the well-respected astrologer Robert Hand many times has said that there is no good and bad astrology. There is astrology that is more difficult than other astrology, and that simply may require a different part of us. And I think that it can also bring something out of us that maybe we didn't even know was in there. And so we can really think of that with Mars, this particular point as well. Okay, so I'm going to pull some tarot for you, and I'm also going to keep having this, the light comes in a particular kind of way in the afternoon. So I just pulled my shade down again. Okay, so I will invite you to get into a comfortable place as best you can as I shuffle the cards here. And I invite you to do whatever feels right for you. So you can come into a place of stillness. You can do some stretching, organic stretching movements, or like even pacing or any kind of rhythmic physical movement. You can close your eyes, or you can focus on a particular something in your field of vision. And it also helps too to draw the energy inward to focus on some sensory experience. So that may be the sensation of your breath, that may be a sound that you hear, the temperature of the air, the sensation of your clothes, anything that you can most easily anchor into. And imagining here that you are within this safe, secure bubble of energy. Now is also a really lovely time to invite in the presence of your spiritual guidance team, ancestors, whatever expression of benevolent, supportive energy that connects with you. Ask that they're here with you now to help you, to guide you, to support you, and to connect with you in a way that you can most easily understand right now. And here, maybe there is a question or an inquiry that arises in your mind. And then finally, I am pulling 3 cards here. So I invite you to choose a number between 1 and 3. That card will be special to you. Okay. So first card is the Empress. This is the third card in the tarot. And the image in this card is this, gosh, this like vision of beauty here. This person who is wearing a very flowy, full yellow dress that's sort of low cut, and they have this Venus symbol necklace, and the dress has white and red roses on it. They're carrying a basket with a pumpkin and some other sort of autumn kind of fruits or veggies, and they're carrying what looks like maybe a baby or toddler age child, and they have this crown of stars. So the Empress tends to be a symbol of fertility, abundance. It's like the potential, especially of creative energy, and that there's something that is being born or about to be born. It usually kind of has this sense of like gestation to it. So there's a lot. Feels very Jupiterian to me in some ways, and also the Empress tends to be very much correlated to Venus. So there's so much here around around beauty and luxury and abundance, and that there is a sense of fertility, and that there is a lot that can be created here. And so we can think of this card as sort of like the embodiment of the creative function. And when this card comes up, there is abundance here. There is creativity here, and so this is maybe possibly what's happening for you now. And I think that this card is a reminder that this energy is always here for you. And in certain periods of time, we're going to be more connected to the Empress than others. But there's really something here for you. And I think that I'm thinking about the Mercury-Jupiter-Saturn aspect, and I'm really feeling like the Jupiter element coming forward here, where there is abundance, there are resources for you. And this card is encouraging you to remember that your essence, your core, there is this creative, beautiful, easeful way of being that is always accessible to you. The second card is the Judgment card. So we have some kind of big cards here. The Judgment card tends to show up when there's encouragement to be yourself. I know that sounds a little cheesy, but it is a reminder that who you are is important, and there is something here where you are stepping into yourself, you are revealing yourself, you are unmasking. There's encouragement here to do that, and this card speaks to the vulnerability and the feelings that we have around unmasking or being more authentic or being more real in a way where it's like you're being seen more, you're being visible more so. And this can be subtle, it can also be more explicit. It really depends. And this person, so the figure in this card, they're wearing these kind of like gray jogger pants and this long floor length cardigan duster kind of thing. And then they have a shirt that has the traditional, some of the traditional Smith Waite deck images on it. And it's this angel that's playing a trumpet that's like emerging from the clouds. And they have this posture that's like kind of chill and like they're just, hanging out. And there's sort of this, when I look at this, there's this ease. They're not like putting on a performance. And I think that's the essence of the judgment, is that you are like emerging as your natural self, as at this point in time. This is, I think, like an ongoing, we could say that we're continuing to embody the justice or the judgment rather. The judgment card, over time there are more and more layers that we discover in our unmasking and our sense of being, and really feeling into our authentic way of being more and more over time. It's a gradual process. And so when I'm looking at this initially, there's like this sense of there is something in you that is being birthed, that is emerging, that is being created. And this is inherently connected to you showing up as yourself, as you, in a way that is authentic, that is being seen, in a way that is true to your essence. Now, the last card is the Four of Swords. And this card is correlated to rest. It's connected with meditation, contemplation. It is connected to not doing. It is a symbol of being versus doing. And especially with the swords are our mind, our thought process, working with our anxieties and stressors. And this card, at a more simplistic level, this card is like, you need to chill, you need to rest, you need to do things to restore yourself. Or not that you need to, like, do what you want, of course, but like it's saying that rest and inaction is going to restore you. Or maybe that you need some restoration. Maybe that's not possible for you right now, but it is possibly validating that you're at a point where rest is going to revive you. And there's like this, it's interesting because it's reminding me of how sleep literally repairs our body. Like sleep has this reparative function. And I think that certain forms of mindfulness or flow states do that as well. And this card is like, the figure in the card, they're in a cross-legged traditional meditative pose, and they have this like hand mudra that they're doing with their hands, and then the swords are kind of hovering around them. And when I'm looking at this, I sort of have the sense that this person is like meditating, and they're doing this like psychic connection with the swords, and the swords are raised and hovering, and sort of like a symbol of the psychic energy that's being activated right now. And so I also want to say too, like this, what this figure is doing in this card is the stereotypical version of meditating. Meditation can look like anything. It can look like you laying down, it can look like you going for a walk or taking a bath or listening to music, anything. It's about this flow state that gets activated. And it's also about taking the pressure off of yourself to complete or to be productive. This card is saying that the most restorative thing that you can do right now is to give yourself a break. And so I'm also thinking of the Four of Swords. The four in numerology is so connected to a sense of wholeness or integration or balance. And so as I'm looking at all of these together, there is really something that's coming forward for you, that is emerging for you. And maybe you're in the process of creating, embodying your sense of self. There's something that is coming forward from within you that maybe you didn't even realize. And that doesn't have to be a public situation, though it may. but it can also be simply for you, and that is also going to maybe possibly lead you into a deeper state of connection with yourself or contemplation, or there's something that maybe as all of this is happening that you want to think about, that you want to contemplate, that may need like a little more time to integrate. And so there might be something here that's like very strikingly emerging via the judgment card, and this may involve tending to feelings around vulnerability, around being seen, around like who am I, and that you get to tend to yourself via the Four of Swords in any way that feels restorative to you. That like this actually, like there's so much psychic energy that's being produced via the Empress and the Judgment. Like this is a there's a lot that's happening, and that you may, yeah, like need a little rest afterwards, and I encourage you to take that if you need it. So that's what I have to say about the astrology of this week. Again, I am so excited to host this workshop. It's called Challenging Astrology, Moving from Hardship to Healing with a Depth Psychological Perspective of Astrology. And I'll be taking in-person volunteers to work with your chart, your transits in particular, and really like workshopping, okay, like what is happening here, especially some of the more challenging aspects that we have, and how to look at these from a depth psychological, trauma-informed social justice lens, and essentially how we can destigmatize and de-fear some of the astrology that especially is coming up. I think that this can happen a lot with Mars retrograde, Pluto and Aquarius, but also when we have aspects in our birth chart that are more challenging. And so, so excited to workshop this with you and to share more about viewing things from a depth psychological lens. This is being hosted in person in San Diego in the Hillcrest area. It's December 13th at 7 p.m. And you can also join me online 7 p.m. Pacific time. And I'll have more info on my website. You can sign up online on my website, or if you want to be there in person, you just show up. And it's being very generously hosted by the San Diego Astrological Association, which is a local nonprofit community org. And if you can come in person, I highly recommend it because it's a way to connect with other astrology enthusiasts in your area. If you're not in San Diego, I'm like pretty sure there's probably some astrology organization in your area. And so it's really nice to go to these things to feel like you're not so alone in this interest of astrology and to connect with other people. So anyways, would love to have you there, and I'm so happy to have you here with me in this weekly astrology space. Wishing you so much ease this week, and I'll see you soon.